Welcome to DMM Downloads. We are podcasting another conversation about DMM between Jeff Crabtree and me, Rudy Rivera. Jeff and I are teamed together in Northern Colorado in a ministry we call DMM NOCO. DMM NOCO is unleashing disciple-making movements in Northern Colorado, and we thought it a good idea to start a podcast as a way to bring awareness and resourcing to ordinary people who are passionate about making multiplying disciple makers in our natural networks. Thanks for joining us in this journey. We hope you get a DMM download from this conversation. Well, hey, Jeff.
Rudy.
We're back.
Again.
Yeah, it's another week and another DMM download. And Jeff and I have just been talking here the last couple of minutes about the plans for today. And we want to continue the habit of multiply. So we're not quite done with the habits. Actually, we're probably never done with the habits.
Yeah, but at least we can lean into a few more.
Exactly, yeah. So we've been talking about some of the things that we wanted to make sure we got out of us. And as always, it's more questions probably, right? Just posing questions and trying to hear what the Lord might say about these questions. But we have a few thoughts that we wanted to download today. And so, Jeff, take it away.
Yeah, we've said that maybe this podcast isn't as much definitive, even though we hope we share some things that we think are. But it's more asking and answering questions that we wrestle with. I know when I first got into DMM, I had to unlearn to relearn. Mm-hmm. And so we're talking about multiply, and that's not a normal topic. I think back the 40 years I was in traditional ministry before I jumped into movement world, I can't say that I ever really thought about multiply or multiplication or that whole concept in the scriptures. So that's why we're taking a few extra times to take a look at what does it mean to have a mentality and a mindset in our habits training of multiplying everything we do, trying to multiply the heart of God in others, multiply prayer, multiply people in engagement, and so on. So I think that's why we decided, well, hey, let's just ask and answer, brainstorm, and lean into this whole idea of multiply.
Yeah, that's great. And I know since we've been going through habits training, you and I, we've talked about this. We've trained it a lot now, but we've also both gone through the habits training for ourselves. For me, it's, I don't know now, we're easily over 5, 6, 7 times now. And that's every time I go through habits training, I feel like I'm getting something new or there's something taken a little bit deeper. So I love the habits training, but specifically since thinking about multiply, I would say I see it everywhere. I see my tendency to not multiply, to kind of keep things maybe closer to my own leadership or to kind of say, well, I'm the supposed expert, if you will, and maybe I need to kind of hold, or people might want to give me the leadership role. That happens too. And I find myself, since kind of leaning into habits more and practicing habits more, I find myself being challenged regularly to kind of say, no, I want to push it away. Every person that I interact with as we engage on DMM topics, I'm trying to say, well, you can do this too. And let's do this in your natural network and let's get you going. And that just kind of moves away, quote unquote, it multiplies away from me. But I can tell you, I think it's a challenge on a practical level to get out of the old habits of, well, one, either addition or, hey, just, turn in your information to Rudy and make sure I can be the source of help, me alone, if you will. Not in a prideful way, but just in a leadership way. That's my response.
I think it's about mindset. And I know that what we're trying to do, and not to throw my pastor, your pastor, the traditional attractional church under the bus, but when we talked about training, equipping, and deploying, it was basically internally. Let's see if we can get you more involved in the ministry inside of the church. Well, really, if you think about that, at least the way I think about it, again, we're not trying to be definitive, we're wrestling with things, is that's very limited. It's about bringing things to us, maybe deploying it, but inside of something. Well, we're talking about a new way to gospel, the new way to see the gospel spread rapidly with a multiplication thought. It's training and equipping, deploying and coaching for it to move away from us, not towards us. Does that make sense? It might seem like a small thing, but it's really huge in our mindset in a movement context.
And it's practically huge, I would say, because again, it sounds like a small shift. It's not a small shift. You, as a leader, or anybody that's listening, if you're put in position of leadership, shifting to push things away from you rather than pull things in, it's a huge practical difference. And we did a prayer walking time recently here in our neighborhood in Timnath, in our town. And maybe you can kind of unpack that a little bit in terms of even that practical, some of those practical steps of how we were trying to push it away or multiply versus it bringing everybody closer to. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Tell us about the prayer walking
Well,
time.
maybe a couple of thoughts in regard to that. First is the church that I'm now on staff with, that I'm the disciple-making pastor. Recent transition is they're moving into a new building. So we invited people to meet at the building, but we pointed out a different thought here is we're going to go out and prayer walk around the neighborhood, around the church, but we're not going to meet people or whatever, or pray that people would come to the building. We were training these people to step into different neighborhoods that they might be able to meet people, persons of peace or whatever, so that we could plant the gospel, if you will, in those areas, and then we train them how then to take the people that they've met and train them to prayer walk. So again, it's not bringing us towards ourselves or towards the church building. We are training, equipping, deploying, so that they then could not only do the work in not only the neighborhood where we prayer walk, but we invited all of them to do that in their own neighborhoods. So we were not only targeting one, we were targeting 12, and then casting the vision to them that we're going to train you to prayer walk, not just here, but in your area. And then when you find people, then you train and equip them to go wherever they can. Do you see this whole multiplication factor that moves away from us rather than an addition factor that moves towards us?
And like a practical step of that we took is and it was Jeff that did this. Jeff sent me a list of 10 prayer points or guides for the prayer time. And then we decided, well, we're going to chop those up into smaller little cards and laminate them. And we'll print off 30 or 50 or whatever it was and bring them to the prayer walking time. And then Jeff said, okay, we're going to hand one out to every person as a way to give some guidance on how to prayer walk, because we weren't quite sure who was going to come, had they ever done this before or not. And then we broke up into groups and started prayer walking those neighborhoods. And you said some things about, okay, how are we going to train the people there? Can you maybe speak a little bit to the usage of the card and then kind of the follow-up on how we're trying to train people even in that time?
Well, yeah, again, we were trying to put something in their hands to give them some focus and guidance on what we were doing and training them to prayer walk. Needed to kind of think of, we said 10 focal points when you go prayer walking. So keep that in mind. But again, like you said, as we talked off camera, then when we all gathered back to kind of debrief, tell stories, celebrate wins, I think it was one or two people said, well, do we need to turn the cards back in? And it doesn't sound like a big principle, but it is no, we are releasing that to you so that not only you gain some competence and intentionality in what you do when you prayer walk, but we want you to take that card into your space, your social network, and then train them. And again, this whole thing of everything needs to multiply and move away from us. If the gospel is going to spread rapidly and virally, it can't keep coming back to us. And again, in professional ministry for 40 years, I think inadvertently I had an addition mentality, and most things came back, where in movement we have a multiplication mentality. It means everything needs to go without us, from us, into other settings.
Yeah, I thought it was, for me, being in that group that night, I thought it was great to hear that again. Maybe I've heard it a lot, but it was still really helpful to hear. You can take this. In fact, we want you to take this evening's training time and go back to where your natural networks are, your neighborhood, your workplace, your place of learning. Because everybody that was there that night, nobody lives in that neighborhood,
Right.
and so including me, even though I live close. And so, we all had to drive there. And so when you said, now take it back to where you come from, and you also said, and we'll be happy to go with you and train you as
Correct.
well, right? So it wasn't void of like, well, here you go and good luck. It was like, we're willing to walk with you and train you, but the goal is not that you'll be dependent on us or that you have to come here every time to do it, or that this is the only place you can prayer walk. It really was a picture in my mind, if you can picture it, if you're listening, a group of 13 of us outside of a church building, separating into 3 groups for about an hour, I think it was, coming back, debriefing, and then saying, now go and do it yourself.
Correct.
And I'm curious, if we talked about this with that group, who's going to do it?
Mm-hmm.
And if we do see people doing that in their own spaces, and then even better, training more people to do it, then we are starting to see the beginnings of multiplication from a prayer walking time. The old me, if you will, would have just said, okay, turn in your cards at the end of the time. We'll bring them back to you next time. We'll meet here in a month. Come back and do it again. And I thought from the very beginning, you decided, let's go to multiplication, or that mindset. I thought it was really good. So
Yeah, well,
as we kind of
appreciate
close
that.
out, maybe
Yeah,
give
what
us
we
some-
want to do, I think, in this particular podcast was to take it out of the theory or the idea or even the theology of multiply, and maybe not perfectly, but give a practical illustration of how that mindset of multiply hit the street level in us ministering to people, getting them involved in ministry, but again, training, equipping, deploying them so that they could take it to their social networks or their spaces and train others that they can do it. This is simple enough. We say in movement, it has to be simple enough. And simple doesn't make it bad. I think we live in a Western complex culture that says it's got to be so sophisticated that only the professionally trained can do it. And that's that mindset shift that these are really cool gospel kingdom things, but they're simple enough that the ordinary disciple can do it. But again, you have to have the vision that you're trying to get the ministry to go away from you, not back towards you in dependency.
Yeah, that's really well said. I really appreciate your thought on simple, because I was about to say that, and then you said it. So simple, scalable, these principles within movement have to be there. And if you look at this prayer card, and actually, if you go to our website, it's actually on our website now.
Wow.
I put it up there.
Great,
Anybody, go to our website, dmmnoco.com. You can find it under our prayer resource. You too can print off your own prayer card, laminate it if you want to, and take it out and do this. But anyhow, that's a separate thought. But the point being is, it is simple. It actually is a fairly simple card.
Sure.
But using it that night, prayer walking with my group, it was very helpful.
Great.
It really guided us. So I too, I don't want to turn my nose up at simple. I think Americans, we tend to want, fancy. Closing thoughts, Jeff. You got about a minute. Anything that you want to say?
I just simply say that, again, this is all an adventure for us. We don't know who's listening, if you're out there, and whatever your level of interest is. But again, we're here to resource. We don't have it all together, but we're learning, we're growing. We say in the movement world, we're lifelong learners. So if you're out there and you're listening, but you want more information, you'd like to talk to us, or you would like us to unpack something, make sure that you get in touch with us. I think is right, Rudy, that they go to dmmnoco.com.
Yep.
And they can get in touch. Is there a place where they can say, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you, one of you guys"?
Yeah,
Okay,
on the front page.
Again, we want to stir some conversations. We're not trying to be totally definitive, but we want to wrestle with things that we think will empower the ordinary disciple to make other disciples in their natural networks.
Yeah, perfect, Jeff. Thanks for another download here for all of us.
Thanks, Rudy.
Yep. Thanks, Jeff, for that engaging download. In DMM, we like to say that disciples are learners. I know I'm learning a lot from my conversations with you, Jeff. From all of us in DMM NoCo, we hope you got a DMM download from the conversation today. Don't forget to leave this podcast a review wherever you are listening online. If you found this conversation helpful, please head over to our site, dmmnoco.com, where you can find more content for your DMM journey, including a self-paced Habits of a Multiplying Disciple course. The course is designed to give you practical next steps to becoming a DMM practitioner and multiplying disciple maker. You can take that course for free at dmmnoco.com. We will be back next week with another engaging DMM download episode. Until then, may you hear from God through His Spirit and take simple steps of obedience in what you hear.